One of Nintendo's secret weapons that can help out with the pricing crisis that we have right now is a Nintendo Switch 2 Lite. For those who don't remember, the Nintendo Switch 1 had a Lite variant of it about 2 years after it released, and it dropped the price on that quite a bit. The standard Nintendo Switch 1 back in 2019 or so was about $300, and the Nintendo Switch Lite came out at $100 less than that. So that was a significant price, but it dropped a lot of the key features, and now we have some information and probably more like just discussion. I think that's a better way of talking about this, about when Nintendo can do a Nintendo Switch 2 Lite. And I think I have the perfect game and the scenario that this will happen. Plus, we've got some other cool stuff to talk about. But before we continue, we are giving away a Nintendo Switch 2 at 140,000 subscribers or on September 1st, whichever comes first. Subscribe, like, comment. The winner will be chosen at random, and it's a worldwide giveaway. Thanks, peeps. So over on Twitter, Stealth put up this post saying, I really think Switch 2 Lite is going to be a thing by the time Pokemon Winds and Waves releases. And I have to 100% agree. I think that a lot of times when you look at a handheld only type of system, the Nintendo Switch 2 is a hybrid. It's a home console and it's a portable, all put into one, because it's an all-in-one package. You get the Nintendo Switch 2 itself, the unit, the handheld unit, but then you get this dock. And the dock has all the cables and everything set up, and from the very beginning you can undock those Joy-Cons. They give you like a little controller adapter thing to snap them together, and it kind of transforms. That's why it's a hybrid home console portable system. And when you dock the system, it actually unlocks the clocks a bit more, lets it run faster and better. You can get better resolution when it comes to the TV compared to the 1080p screen. So there's a lot of things that transform with it. Now with the Nintendo Switch Lite versus the Switch 1, that was the same exact thing when it comes to the portable play and the docked play. We could see the same thing here, but with the Switch Lite, you get rid of the Joy-Cons, so you can't take them off like you could with a regular Nintendo Switch, and it becomes a modular system where it's all kind of put together. I think that does decrease the component cost to just make it all by one. Having the Joy-Cons come off and each individual part is more expensive. So if there's one way that Nintendo could reduce the price of the Nintendo Switch 2, is making a Nintendo Switch 2 Lite that doesn't come with a dock, because the dock definitely needs to be manufactured. That is an item. You also have the cables and everything, little controller adapter and all that. You get a smaller box, so shipping, transporting, all that type of stuff should be a bit cheaper, which should bleed into the system when it comes to the price of it, because it's not as good as a regular Nintendo Switch. Now, like I stated before, the Nintendo Switch Lite came out about 2 years or so after the original Nintendo Switch. Now, we could see something the same here, although I'm a little bit more hesitant on that just because of the manufacturing issues that we've seen when it comes to component cost. Is Nintendo really going to disrupt what they have right now to put out a Nintendo Switch Lite? However, I do feel that there are some games like Pokemon Winds and Waves that are absolutely more handheld focused than docked play focused, and that's just because of the history of the Pokemon games. So I think if there was a time to push out, if they were planning on doing a Nintendo Switch 2 Lite, I think that Pokemon Winds and Waves is absolutely a great time to have something like that. And what we've seen before in the past is that we have seen that they've done special edition or they've done Nintendo Switch Lite type of hardware releases around Pokemon. They've done a lot of stuff around Pokemon. So even if we don't get a Nintendo Switch 2 Lite, we could get some type of special edition with Pokemon Winds and Waves. And I would bank on there being something, some type of hardware or special edition variant of the Nintendo Switch 2 when Pokemon Winds and Waves comes out. But we just don't know exactly when Pokemon Winds and Waves is coming out. Usually Pokemon games will come out in the holiday period, November. They might not want to wait that long, but we've gotten Pokemon games earlier than that. So for example, Pokemon Legends Arceus, that game dropped in early 2022 instead of the fall. But then again, the mainline Pokemon games like Pokemon Sword and Shield, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, these games come out usually in the holiday November time period. So that could be the same thing here, or they could want to push it out earlier. Now, there's also rumors of a big 3D Mario game coming out in 2027, so that could be the big holiday game for next year. So I do think that there's a possibility that Pokemon comes out sooner than that. There's also Xenoblade Genesis, and I don't think that's going to be a holiday game. I think they're going to try to get that game out sometime in the first half of 2027. So Pokemon Winds and Waves, it could be that big push before the end of the financial year for Nintendo, which is the end of March 2027. If they have Pokemon Winds and Waves right there sometime, I would say early March, like they did with Pokemon Pocopia, that was a massive system selling boost that Nintendo absolutely needed for the Nintendo Switch 2. Kind of came out of nowhere. January and February were not bad sales wise, but it definitely could have been better here in the US. And then Pokemon Pocopia comes out in early March of 2026 and just blows things away and really helps the system quite a bit. Could we see the same thing with Pokemon Winds and Waves and maybe even some new hardware? That would make it to where that was less than 2 years between the launch of the Nintendo Switch 2 and this hardware variant. So it seems less likely for those to happen before, I would say, June or July, August, when it comes to the 2-year anniversary of the Nintendo Switch 2 in 2027. But it's fascinating to think about the possibilities and what they're going to do. I think the biggest thing for me, at least, is just seeing if there is a way to make the Nintendo Switch 2 a bit cheaper, and this would be one of the ways to make it a bit cheaper. Now, the pricing is interesting because the Switch 2 is currently $450 to $500 depending on the bundle, but by September 1st here in the US, it's going to be $500. So could they get the manufacturing down by around $100 to $80-$70 or so, make it like, let's just say $430 or $400? I would hope so. I think that would be pretty good. That would still be a bit more expensive for like the Lite variants of a system, but in today's day, considering the prices for handheld PCs, the prices for Xbox and PlayStation, it's actually a really good price. So I'm hoping that they can get something there that can help when it comes to that. And if people want to be able to pick up that one for children, or if you want to have another one for, let's just say, travel that's quicker, then you'll have that Nintendo Switch 2 Lite, and it would be something to where, once again, Nintendo can have a little bit of a cheaper model out there. But I do think we all have to wait and see what's happening here. Nintendo always does light variants of any type of handheld system that they have. They've been doing it now for decades at this point, and I don't see it stopping. Nintendo's just having to maneuver one of the more, I would say, challenging hardware time periods when it comes to the prices of components, especially with RAM. But moving on to something else when it comes to the actual games with these systems, let's talk about what's happening with the Famitsu Most Wanted for July 12, 2026, because there is a ton of games that I'm actually excited about and I wanted to talk when it comes to these games that are here. Final Fantasy VII Revelation, that's within the top 10. Dragon Quest Monsters, The Withered World, that's awesome. Onimusha, Way of the Sword, I'm looking forward to that. Ace Combat 8, not a big Ace Combat fan, but my buddy Spawnwave, he loves Ace Combat, so I know he's hyped about that. Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. That is a game that I am so excited to revisit and what they do. There's been so much talk about Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time and how it's going to be like, and the pricing leak, and oh, that means it's like Star Fox, and I think it's just silly. We need to wait for that 40th anniversary Nintendo Direct that they're probably going to do. There is the Legend of Zelda 40th anniversary. I still feel like there's going to be something. Either it's going to be in the next Nintendo Direct, like they did with the Mario 40th anniversary, where they had like a whole 20-minute whatever Mario block, and they showed Mario Galaxy 1 and 2. They talked about the movie. They talked about various different aspects and different games and different things surrounding Mario. I think they can do something similar for The Legend of Zelda, and maybe we get our first trailer for the Legend of Zelda movie, or we get more footage of that. Maybe we get a first real gameplay look at the Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. Maybe they finally reveal Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess HD combo pack for the Nintendo Switch 2, or maybe they do the same thing where it's a Switch 1 game that you can also update on your Switch 2 when it comes to Mario Galaxy 1 and 2. So there's a lot of different things they can do with that, and I'm really excited to see how they actually tackle the Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, because the game is coming out this year year, and it's 100% coming out this year. It's not being delayed. That is their big holiday game to push sales. Remember, they want to sell around 36 million units by the end of March 2027. They're around 20 something million units, so they need some game that's going to push 7 to 8 million units, or help push 7 to 8 million units, along with all the different sales that they're getting this year. So along with the different games like Splatoon Raiders and Fire Emblem and all the games that are coming out now, and then that holiday, you're going to need to have a big holiday. Remember, the Switch 2 is going to be more expensive. It's going to be $500 instead of the $450, but a lot of people have been paying $500 for the Switch 2 anyway, because they've been buying the Mario Kart World bundle or the Choose Your Game bundle. So that's also a thing. But yes, they're going to need the Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time remake, and I do think that it's a pivotal game for the holiday this year. You also have Grand Theft Auto 6. Japan gamers, they rising up for Grand Theft Auto a bit here. And Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave, another huge game, maybe not a huge game in the seller category, although Fire Emblem Three Houses sold over 5 million units from what I understand. So it is a multi-million selling popular franchise. Sometimes people put it in like the niches of categories as if it's only selling like barely a million units. No, Fire Emblem sells more than that. So I am excited to see Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave. I think it's going to be an incredible experience with multiple different paths, and significantly better from what we've seen from a technical perspective. The graphics, the transitions, the music, everything is just so nice in the game. It pretty much almost tripled in size from Fire Emblem Three Houses to Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave. So they're definitely utilizing that extra bump in the power for the Nintendo Switch 2, and you can see it within the gameplay of Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave. So I'm excited for that game. Persona 4 Revival, that's another game people are looking forward to early next year. And Splatoon Raiders, that is a game that I'm super excited about. I am so much looking forward to it. I actually had to go back to the Best Buy demo and play it again. I played it like multiple times now because I wanted to really explore some of the other aspects of that game. Like, I just used the power tank my first time playing, but this time I used the speed tank and I used the technical tank, and they're both fine. I think I like power tank the most, but the speed tank is also really good. The gameplay is super fast and it's nice. They got some nice little extra things that they put in there, and I've said this before talking about Splatoon Raiders, but it kind of takes all of the things that I like about all the various aspects or gameplay modes of Splatoon the series. The single player adventure games, the DLC like Octo Expansion, the RPG elements, the rogue type thing like we saw with Splatoon 3 Side Order, but without the rogue stuff. I mean, they don't have that. It's more like an action adventure shooter game, so it doesn't have like the rogue stuff from what we understand, but the RPG elements in there, it takes all of that plus Salmon Run and all the enemies and waves kind of coming at you, but it puts you in a bigger area. It takes all the things that I love about the Splatoon experience, then kind of puts it all into one. It even has multiplayer where you can play cooperative with your friends, up to 3 other people, so 4 total, and it gets harder as you add in people. Plus it has customizable difficulty in the game, plus harder levels like the spicy and all of that. So this is everything that I think that I've actually wanted from a Splatoon game, all put into one, to the point where I had to go back and play the demo again. And I almost never do that when it comes to different games. Actually, I've never done that. Whenever I go play a demo at a store that Nintendo's done or any other game, I play it one time and I'm like, all right, cool, I'll wait for the release. But this one, I actually have to go back. And I even beat the demo boss. I didn't do that the last time just because I was kind of messing around with the game and my 15 minutes ran out. But I went back, I beat the demo boss this time, and it was great. Like the little sub-level stuff that you can do, you're drilling down into the sub-levels. So that was awesome as well. And of course, number one, talked about it, Pokemon Winds and Waves. This is going to be a massive game. That's why I think that there is a possibility that this game does come out in March of 2027, maybe to help Nintendo kind of push them over that edge that they're going to need to sell more systems. So we'll see about that. Now, they could wait and they could revise their forecast. You never know. They could revise down or whatever the case is if they don't have some of the bigger hitters that's going to help them with the sales of the Switch 2. But I do feel that the Nintendo Switch 2, when it comes down to it, Pokemon Winds and Waves is going to be a key game in 2027 for this system. A lot is riding on that game and also other games, but I think that Pokemon Winds and Waves, it's going to be a huge game. And this is the first title that we've seen when it comes to Pokemon with this renewed focus. This, okay, we saw, we heard, we know we messed up when it comes to Pokemon Scarlet and Violet about 4 years ago now at this point. We understand, and we took more time to create this game so we don't have the same issues. They're obviously on the Nintendo Switch 2, much stronger hardware. We're seeing the improved graphics from the first trailer that we already saw. So that is a significantly better effort. Not complete, not finished, but we've got to see all the new features and what they're packing in. So they might want to take their time a bit more and put that at the end of the year or something. But I'm guessing it's either going to come at the beginning of the year or it's going to come at the end of the year. Pokemon games usually don't launch in the middle of the year. So I'm guessing it's going to be one of those two. Even the spin-offs don't launch in the middle of the year. It's either going to be the beginning of the year or the end of the year. But what do you think when it comes to everything we talked about here? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, peeps, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click the notification bell, and check out my other Nintendo Switch 2 RPG content and more right here on screen. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you for the next one. Peace.